My name is Becky Yurek. I serve as Chief Strategy Officer here at New York City's Department of Design and Construction. So I oversee our strategic plan, which is our blueprint, to design and build better, faster, and cheaper on behalf of New Yorkers. Our total capital plan right now is about 34 billion, which is the highest that it's ever been. So year by year, that's about 5.5 billion. I think it's probably no surprise to anyone that public design and construction can be too expensive and too slow. And in part, that's because of the many, many layers of rules, requirements, processes that have accumulated over the decades, right? And many of these are in place for good reason, but they also mean, again, that public projects can take too long. It takes us too long to get projects into the hands of their communities where they're badly needed. So we, as an agency, have been looking over many years at how we can do better at every stage of project delivery, whether that's the stuff that we can do on our own as an agency, the stuff that we do with our city agency partners and oversights, and also through state legislation. And I think it's all of it, right? It's processes, it's people, it's technology insofar as that can support both of those things. I mean, just to name an example, we've spent the last probably 18 months doing a deep dive into the process of paying our contractors because we heard that it was taking too long for us to pay them. And we were like, that's not true. We pay within 30 days. And when we started to look into it and see what was going on, we found it was everything that happened before the clock started, right? So it's like looking hard at where the problem actually is, and then problem solving that across multiple levels, right? So just as an example, we found that we were using forms that were 20 years old. We were asking for something like 10 notary signatures. We were asking for hard copies, crazy stuff that we haven't actually needed in years, but it took doing that deep dive to really understand and kind of strip back everything that's not strictly needed. One of my favorite things that I heard today, actually, right, was that we shouldn't just be looking at what's the shiny new solution. Well, the solution to what, right? We have to actually accurately diagnose the problem before we can start to think about how to solve it. And I think, technology absolutely has a role in solving the problem, but we need to know what we're looking for first. I am hard pressed to think of a more important conversation. One of the things that we reflect on here is how, as a public agency, it can actually be quite hard to adopt things like emerging technology, right? We are a slow ship to steer, like any large organization or, especially kind of municipality, right? So for me, bringing everyone into the room, right? Our vendors, the design and construction teams who deliver our work, and the technology innovators, and actually just matchmaking them, right? Putting them together into one place to cross-pollinate is an incredibly exciting thing. And for me, it's one of the ways that we as an owner can actually make a difference in this space. We might not be able to hire them directly, but we can at least connect some of the dots. The range of solutions to things that truly, truly are challenges for us right now in New York City. I mean, I'm thinking to some of the morning sessions, right? And the level of sophistication through which we can now understand existing conditions, for example, whether it's underground conditions, building conditions. And we as a city, we're still stuck in the world of sending inspectors out or even not knowing what's under the street until we open it up for construction. I mean, that's crazy. And so to know that these solutions exist and that, again, we can start to connect the dots between new technologies and the problems that we very tangibly are trying to grapple with right now. New York City and DDC, we are a big owner, right? Like there is a large market that's driven by our work, but we also had representatives of other major public owners in the room, Port Authority, MTA, right? And they are all audiences for this kind of material too. They are grappling with very, very similar, if not the same problems. One of the sort of most perennial problems for us is the lack of good early planning. We all know that good planning leads to good outcomes, right? But the city of New York actually lacks much of the data and the tools that it needs to do early, holistic capital planning. We as an agency are launching a program called Advanced Capital Planning to try and tackle that, right? To bring data and tools and technical expertise to bear upfront early in the process. But I think many of the technology solutions that I saw today are ways at getting at exactly that, right? Gathering more information on what we have as a city and then leveraging that, turning that around into capital planning. as a public agency, we're not necessarily able to go out to these firms directly and just test these solutions, although we love to. But we really rely on our vendors, our architects, our engineers, our builders to bring innovative solutions to the table, to show us what's possible so that we can then turn around and fold that in the future into our requirements. So for me, again, seeing as an agency what these solutions are, and especially having our designers and our builders see these solutions, pilot these solutions on our projects, and then we can see what works and what doesn't, and that can shape how we do procurement, right? How we, just to name an example, we've got a design procurement on the street, and we are awarding points specifically how the firms think about innovation, right? What is your innovation approach? And we would hope to see solutions like this so that we can actually bring more of that to the table. Understand what our problems are as a city. They're actually pretty easy to understand, right? It's not rocket science stuff. It's like, how do we understand existing conditions? How do we partner? How do we, facilitate collaboration through design and construction, through the tools that we use? There are real tangible problems that can be solved, and I think, putting the attention on those is what will allow us to ultimately make use of these tools. The level of need in the city is so great. And this is not unique to New York, right? Our projects are getting bigger, they're getting more complex, they're getting more urgent, right? And so we need the tools to deliver them. And I think to the extent that technology can start to fill some of those gaps and can give us the tools to work better together, to understand existing conditions better, these are the things that we need, and it will be part of the solution.